Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa mawalah amma ba'd. Okay, so now we're in our second video of week 3, and this is the sarf presentation, and we'll be developing the mudari verb, the imperfect verb, and this is the verb in the Arabic language that conveys both the present and the future tense. Okay, so we're gonna go step by step. First, we'll speak about the meanings associated to the verb, and then we'll start filling the slots. We'll speak about fundamentally how this verb differs to the previous one, to the past tense verb. Okay, and what I'd like you to do is try to watch the presentation and conjugation by conjugation as it's being developed, and try to come out with as much memorization of the table you can while the presentation is going on. And I'm confident, inshallah, you'll be able to do it. And then at certain stages, the text might get a little small, okay, because we want to fit everything on the slide. So along with the video, there's the download for the table, the PDF document. So I would suggest printing that out if you feel that the text is too small, or you might want to maximize the screen while you're watching the video to be able to see it properly. Okay, so let's proceed with it, inshallah. Okay, so it's the verb that indicates on both the present and the future. So the total amount of meanings that you can get from this single verb is 3. You'll get the present tense, you'll get the simple present tense, you'll also get the present continuous, and there's also a possibility of the future tense. And this is true for active, and it's also true for passive. So here's the examples. Yansuru. Yansuru is the active mudari with the helping letters. The 3 translations you get from this verb are: number 1, he helps, and that's what we call simple present tense. So without indicating on whether the action is happening again and again, or is it a prolonged action, it's just a very simple meaning: he helps. Or it could be he is helping, he's actively engaged in the act of helping. Or he will help, that's the future meaning. And passive, the three translations would be: he is helped, meaning that someone else helps him. He is being helped, and finally, he will be helped. Okay, so you could do hitting, you could do eating or drinking, whatever action. He eats, he is eating, he will eat. Okay, that doesn't lend itself too much to passive. So, for example, with hitting, it would be: he is hit, he is being hit, he will be hit. Okay, so that's the meanings associated to the verb. The rest of the presentation will speak about the method of construction. Okay, so fundamentally what makes this verb different than the past tense, the perfect one, is that this one has a letter at the front along with the ending. Okay, conjugation number 1 doesn't have an ending because that's the default one. So when you see that there's no ending at the end, then it means he. The dual will have a particular ending. The masculine plural will have a different ending. So by that you'll be able to distinguish between the conjugations. Okay, so the mudari verb has suffixes as well as prefixes, or you can say that there's a letter at the front, one of 4 particular letters that need to be at the front, and they're contained in the acronym atayna. So either a ya will be at the front, a ta, a hamza, or a noon. A ya, a ta, a hamza, or a noon. And the purpose of this letter at the front is to first of all distinguish from the perfect, because the perfect one does not have it. So that's like fa'ala, fa'ala, fa'alu, no letter at the front. This one has a letter at the front. The reason is because you can't leave it to vowels only, because when you're reading without vowels, when you're reading a classical Arabic book, the vowels won't be there. So you need an actual script difference, something that could be written in the text, and that's why the letter's there at the front. So the primary reason why we have the letter is to distinguish between this verb and the perfect one. The perfect one does not have the prefix. Okay, now instead of having a single letter throughout all 14, we have these 4 letters. But since the conjugations are 14, they're going to need to be used more than once. They're going to need to be recycled. So the ya comes in 4 of them. The ya, it comes in the 4 of them, and we'll mention on the next slide which 4. The ta comes in 8 of them. The hamza comes in number 13, and the noon comes in number 14. Okay, so let's continue with it. And then beyond the letter at the front, you're going to have something at the end also. Okay, in the Mahdi, number 1 had no ending. Over here, we can afford to have more of them with no ending because the letter at the front would differentiate. So you see, the conveyance of meaning happening here is different than the way it was happening in the past tense verb, and you'll notice this as we move forward with the development of the table. Okay, so 5 of the conjugations do not have an ending. The 5, there's no ending. It's just the lam position is the last letter in 5 of them. And like I mentioned, what allows that is the fact that the prefix will be different. So there needs to be some difference, and the difference does not need to necessarily be at the end. The beginning can serve to distinguish between the conjugations. The remaining 9 conjugations, they'll have endings, and based on the common ending, they're grouped into groups. So, for example, all 4 duals have a common ending, and that would be an alif and a noon. All 4 duals will have an alif and a noon at the end, and the 2 plural masculines have a common ending, and that's the waw coupled with the noon. So you get like luna, luna, and then the beginning portion would distinguish between number 3 and number 9. So number 3 is yaf'aluna, for example. Number 9 is taf'aluna. The 2 plural feminines have only noon. Their suffix is only a noon, and conjugation number 10 has its own ending, which is a ya preceded by a kasra followed by a noon. So you're gonna get lina. So lani occurs 4 times, luna occurs twice, justna twice, and lina will occur in conjugation number 10 when you're speaking to one female. And all of that, you're going to see it as we develop the table and we start showing you the conjugations as they're complete. So step number 1, attach the prefix. Okay, so on all 14 conjugations, you're going to attach one of the 4 following letters, either a ya, a ta, a hamza, or a noon, and it's going to come before the fa position. The fa position is going to become sakin, so you'll hear yaf, taf, af, and naf. So ya will be attached to 4 of them, the top 3. Yaf, 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 skip 2, and then yaf on the group of females. Yaf, 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 skip 2, and then yaf. The 2 we just skip right now would be taf, taf. So now we have yaf, 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 taf, taf, yaf, and then all middle 6 are taf, 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 taf. Conjugation number 13 has the hamza at the front, and conjugation number 14 has the noon. So isolating the front portion, not the entire verb, just the front portion, this is what you should be able to do, and then move on to the next slide. Okay, so you can pause the video at this stage and make sure you can do this properly before moving forward. Here it is. Yaf, 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 taf, taf, yaf, 6 tafs, af, and naf. Okay, so just lift your head from the screen and be able to do that. Yaf, 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 taf, taf, yaf, 6 tafs, af, and naf. And that's like 30% of the entire table, if you can do that. So let's move forward and let's start developing the ending. The 5 singulars, there's no ending, there's no extra letter. Okay, in the Mati table, it was only the first one that had no extra letter, fa'ala, but here we can afford to have more of them with no designated letter at the end, because the front portion will differentiate and distinguish between them, and we'll have a little overlap. Okay, so 5 conjugations do not have any ending, and instead what you will see is that the lam position will have a dhamma. So like the top one, yaf'alu, yaf'alu, and it's complete, nothing further. It means he helps, is helping, will help. Okay, and the fourth one is taf'alu, and there's a clear difference between number 1 and number 4. Number 1 is the when you're speaking about one male, and number 4 is when you're speaking about one female, and they're identical. The only difference is the yaf at the front or the taf at the front. Okay, here you see all 5 of them. Okay, in the title it says 5 singulars. The word singulars is in quotes because it's not entirely accurate, because you see number 10, which is a singular. Okay, remember the association table layout, what we gave to you in week 1, and you should know that cold, like the way it's distributed. Top 6 is third person, middle 6 is second person, and then I and we at the bottom. So when we say 5 singulars, accurately would be 1, 4, 7, 10, and 13 would be 5 singulars. But notice that number 10 is not part of the group. Number 10 will be discussed later. It has its own unique ending. Okay, so we're generalizing a little when we say 5 singulars. Number 14, on the other hand, happens to belong to the group. Not because it's a singular, but because it has the same ending. You see? So 5 singulars is just a shorthand, convenient shorthand to refer to the whole group. So yaf'alu is he, taf'alu is she, the other taf'alu is you when you're speaking to one male, and those two are identical. So basically the same verb would be used when speaking about a female, and the same identical conjugation would be used when you're speaking to a male. And what allows that recycling is because third person, the occasion of third person is radically different than the occasion of second person. Because when you use the verb as part of a sentence in a paragraph, then it's pretty easy to figure out what's what. Okay, like if you have an evoking, like you say, oh Zayd taf'alu, then obviously that's conjugation number 7. But when you say Fatima taf'alu, then obviously that would be conjugation number 4. You see, so that's using the same one twice. Af'alu clearly distinct, that's the I one, and naf'alu is when the doer of the verb is the speaker himself. Group. Okay, and back in the Madi, in I think 1.3, people asked that question about if you have a mixed group of males and females, what do you do? Then in conjugation number 14 it doesn't matter because gender becomes irrelevant. And if it was third person, then you would use conjugation number 3. And if it was second person, you would use the pronoun that's reserved for a group of males. Okay, so when there's males and females together being talked about, then it's the male group that's chosen for that purpose. Anyways, that was a side topic. Let's continue. Yaf'alu, taf'alu, taf'alu, afalu, nafalu. Okay, now we're going to speak about the 4 duals. All 4 duals have the common ending of alif and noon. So yaf'alu, yaf'alani would be the second one. Taf'alu, taf'alani would be the 5th one. Like that. Okay, but first you can see the table being developed here. The new conjugations are highlighted in yellow, and we still have a bunch of slots to fill. Okay, the duals and the plurals still need to be talked about, so let's move forward with the 4 duals. The ending of the 4 duals is the alif and noon, like we mentioned earlier, and the lam position will have a fatha, and that's obviously because the alif needs a fatha. Alif necessitates a fatha prior to it, so you're going to get lani, 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 lani 4 times. And when we say 4 duals, we literally mean 4 duals, and it's not like we were generalizing previously. We said singulars, but number 14 was part of the group. Over here is the actual 4 duals that are being talked about, and you can see them all on the screen. Yaf'alani is conjugation number 2. Now notice 5, 8, and 11. 5 is when you're speaking about 2 females. 8 is when you're speaking to 2 males, and number 11 is when you're speaking to 2 females. All 3 of those are identical. Taf'alani, taf'alani, taf'alani. Now the overlap between 8 and 11 is understandable because that happened in Madi also. Fa'altuma, fa'altuma, it came twice. Remember that? Fa'alta, fa'altuma, fa'altum, fa'alti, fa'altuma, fa'altunna. It's not a big deal because in English they make no distinction. They say you, regardless of whether you're speaking to a male or a female, 2 males, 2 females, group of females. It's the same pronoun used for all 6 of those. Well, actually, there's only 4 in English because there's no dual in English. But the point is that there's no differentiation between masculine and feminine in English. So here in Arabic, normally we would have a differentiation like you're seeing between 2 and 5. Number 2 is for the 2 males, yaf'alani. Number 5 is for when you're speaking about 2 females, taf'alani. So those 2 are different. In second person, it becomes irrelevant. Doesn't matter whether you're speaking to 2 males or you're speaking to 2 females, you're going to use the same verb for that. Okay, so now take these 4 and combine it with the previous 5, and we have the entire table. You can see it on the next screen. Now at this stage, it would be an appropriate time to pause the video and be able to do this. Be able to do this, lift your head from the screen and be able to do this. Yaf'alu yaf'alani. Taf'alu taf'alani. Again, taf'alu taf'alani. And finally, there's a taf'alani number 11, and then af'alu naf'alu. Or do like this. Yaf'alu yaf'alani, skip 1. Taf'alu taf'alani, skip 1. Taf'alu taf'alani, skip 2, and then taf'alani again, and then finally af'alu naf'alu at the end. Or just be able to picture it. If you can't do it, if you can't recite it, then just be able to picture it. 2, 2, 2, 1 on its own, and then af'alu naf'alu at the bottom. Okay, and notice the beginnings. Yaf'alu yaf'alani for the masculines, for the 1 male and 2 males. Yaf'alu yaf'alani. 1 female, 2 female, identical. Only difference is that the front, taf'alu taf'alani. And then those 2 are repeated again for 7 and 8. But this time you're speaking to 1 male or you're speaking to 2 males. Taf'alu taf'alani. Okay, now for 2 females it's identical, but we don't know what it is for 1 female. Not yet. It's going to come. Number 10, conjugation number 10 is yet to be developed. And then finally at the end, af'alu naf'alu. Let's continue. Okay, now let's move on to the group of males. And when we say plural masculines, we're talking about number 3 and number 9. Common ending, difference at the beginning. Because remember, yaf, yaf, yaf. and then later it was 6 tufs in the middle. So that beginning portion will distinguish between whether you're speaking about a group of males or whether you're speaking to a group of males. The common ending is a waw. Okay, same waw that we saw over there in fa'alu. Fa'ala, fa'ala, fa'alu. Waw's coming back, but this time along with the waw we have a noon. And the whole purpose and point behind the noon will be talked about later. Okay, it's not part of the introductory theory. You don't need to know why that noon's there, but just be able to, when you recite the tables, make sure you pronounce the noon. Okay, so we have Luna, and this occurs twice. It occurs in conjugation number 3, which is when you're speaking about a group of males, and it occurs again in conjugation number 9 when you're speaking to a group of males. So you can see both of those isolated here. Yaf'aluna is the complete verb form for number 3, and taf'aluna is the conjugation for number 9. So now we have the top 3. The whole group is there. Yaf'alu, yaf'alani, yaf'aluna, and you need to be able to do that. Yaf'alu, yaf'alani, yaf'aluna. If you can do that, just know later on it's going to be taf'alu, taf'alani, taf'aluna when you're speaking to the group of males. Exact same, identical. The only difference is the front. Same endings: singular, singular, dual, dual, plural, plural. They correspond and they match completely, and that's like half of the table. Yaf'alu, yaf'alani, yaf'aluna. Later down, taf'alu, taf'alani, taf'aluna. The ones in the middle, okay, and then even after the video is done, you can pull out the PDF document and then spend 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes on it, and you should know the table. Okay, so it's not rote memorization either. It's noting the differences and how the conjugations are formed. Okay, so now the next logical group to speak about will be conjugation number 6 and conjugation number 12, the 2 plural feminines. So the ending for those 2 is just a noon. And here I'd like to draw your attention because in fa'ala, fa'ala, fa'alu, fa'alat, fa'alata, fa'alna, alna, this is the same ending we get here. Except it's not fa'alna, it's yaf'alna with the ya at the front, or taf'alna with the ta at the front in the case of conjugation number 12. So that prefix is what distinguishes it. Take away the prefix, it becomes madi number 6. Isn't that right? Okay, so it's the addition of the ya at the front that distinguishes this verb from that one. Other than that, the ending is the same. Okay, but then not only that, but it's repeated again in number 12. And what allows the repetition in number 12 is the beginning portion being different. Yaf versus taf. So you see, in order to distinguish the mudari from the madi, what we needed is a prefix. But then what was given was not one prefix, but one of 4. And then the ya was used 4 times, and the ta was used 8 times. And this then allowed the recycling of the endings. So you get a lot of overlap here. In the case of the duals, you have pure overlap, but I already reasoned that, and I mentioned to you why that's not problematic. Because, when you're speaking in the second person, it makes no difference. Because even there, fa'altuma came twice. And the third person one, overlapping with the third person feminine dual, overlapping with the dual in the second person is not problematic either because of context. Okay, you'll be able to tell whether 2 females are being spoken about or whether you're speaking to 2 people. Okay, so there's some overlap here. That's okay, not a problem. So let's add these 2 to the list, and now we have 13 of them. يفعلون, تفعل, تفعلان. Change the letter at the front, you get يفعلنا. And then تفعل, تفعلان, تفعلون, which is identical to the top 3 except taf, taf, taf at the beginning. Number 10 is yet to be given, and then taf'alani for the dual when you're speaking to 2 females, taf'alna for the group of females, and then af'alu naf'alu ends the table. Conjugation number 10 has its own unique ending, which is a ya preceded by kasra, and that would create lina, and that would be taf'alina. And one tip for you is that the 9th one is waw, a group of males, right? And number 10 is when you're speaking to 1 female. So group of males, 1 female, polar opposite, right? Group of males, 1 female. And then the polar opposite of a waw preceded by a dhamma would be a ya preceded by a kasra. You see? So now you have the entire table. From the top, yaf'alu, yaf'alani, yaf'aluna, taf'alu, taf'alani, yaf'alna, taf'alu, taf'alani, taf'aluna, taf'alina, taf'alani, taf'alna, af'alu, naf'alu. And now you can see the entire table without the highlight. And you can maximize the screen if it's difficult to read, or you can print out the PDF or just open up the PDF and look at that, and the entire table is there. Okay, so now let's speak about passive and then negative, and then we're done with the presentation. Not much going on here, most of it's just listing. Okay, So in order to create passive, you have to make two modifications. Second to last letter, in our example, was yaf'alu, yaf'alani, yaf'aluna. It already had a fatha, so there was no change. You wouldn't change that. But yansuru, for example, does not have a fatha. So second to last letter, you would change it to a fatha if it is not already fatha. Okay, that's a little of an advanced topic. Normally, I wouldn't give it this early. Okay, but you know, verbs could be bigger. You know that verbs could be bigger. Verbs could have irregularities. Many things can happen to verbs. One thing that can happen to a mudari verb is that the middle letter, the ayn position, does not necessarily need to be a fatha. In the example that we gave you, it was already a fatha, so there's no change required. But pretend that it's a dhamma, then that dhamma would need to be changed to a fatha. Pretend it's a kasra, then that kasra would need to be changed to a fatha as part of creating passive. The next change would be the sign of mudari, the very first letter. The sign of imperfection will be given a dhamma, so yaf'alu becomes yuf'alu. Here's some additional examples to really highlight for you. Yaftahu means it is opened. No, yaftahu means he opens. He will open. He is opening. He will open. Passive is yuftahu. The translation is it is opened. It is being opened. It will be open. So see, the change is only at the beginning. The second to last letter already had a fatha in yaftahu, so that just carried forward to the passive, and yaf became yuf, and now we have passive. In adribu, which is number 13, I am hitting, I hit, I hit, I am hitting, I will hit. That's the active. When you change that to passive, not only do you have to change the ad to ud, but you also have to change the ra. So step number 1, second to last letter, change it to a fatha if it's not already a fatha, and then sign of mudari, give it a dhamma. Udrabu. New translation, I am hit, I am being hit, I will be hit. Passive. Nansuru, conjugation number 14 of yansuru is nansuru. Nansuru means I help, I am helping, I will help. Passive is nunsaru. So not only do we have to change the beginning portion nun to nun, but the second to last letter changes to a fatha, and the new translation is we are helped, we are being helped, we will be helped. And then for negative, what you do is you add a la to both of those that we just did right now, and this creates 4 tables. Yaf'alu, yuf'alu, la yaf'alu, and la yuf'alu. And they're all 14, 14, 14, 14. And here's the examples of negative. La yansuru. The 3 translations are written underneath. He does not help, he is not helping, he will not help. So the first translation is the basic one, simple. Second translation is present continuous, he is not helping. And the final translation is future tense, he will not help. For passive, the three translations are written underneath. He is not helped, he is not being helped, he will not be helped. So this concludes the presentation. Now when you download the PDF document, you'll notice that the verbs are there, but underneath the verbs the English translations have not been given. And that is your exercise. Like, that was done intentionally. So please, underneath the video, do not ask for a new document that has the translations written underneath the verbs, because if you do it without the translation written underneath the verb, and you're able to fill those translations on your own mentally, like without writing it, so that means you understand the topic. That means that you've achieved the objective of the science. Okay, because it's more to do with making those associations, like knowing the table layout, knowing that the top 6 are referring to third person, he, they, she, they, and then the middle 6 are you and I and we at the bottom, and knowing that the pattern is giving us the present, simple present continuous future, and how that's reflected in English. So it was done in the presentation at the beginning, and it was done for the passives, and now I just did it for the negatives. So this concludes the presentation, and inshallah we'll see you with the Stories of the Prophets book in the 3rd video of week 3. And I'm gonna create the video inshallah in a couple of days from now. Need a little rest, so you'll have about 3 days before the weekend morning session to watch the remainder of week 3. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.